Now we can go back to what we were talking about.
The fact that I'm glad that I changed out of my pajamas this morning.
Yeah, sometimes I join these I work from home, right? We all work from home. And there's times where I wake up and I just throw on like a tank top, and I'm like, am I gonna have to be on camera today? I don't know. Maybe I'll change later when I decide. And I'm not saying that, there's anything wrong with what, you're wearing or whatever. But sometimes I'm like a old school, and I always say this, I'm like an old school person. When I go to work, like in person, a lot of times I'll wear like a collared shirt, even if
Hmm.
it's just a polo with a color. Um, so I sometimes can't jump on a meeting when I'm just like wearing like my tank top and stuff. But congratulations to you.
Hey, I actually am not in my pajamas. I changed because I had to take my trash cans out this morning. So my shirt says, "Give me pizza or give me death," because I'm a whole adult.
Yeah, I love that. Give me pizza or give me death. You said you had to change because you take your trash cans out. You know what I do sometimes is if you take your trash cans out before the light comes up, before the sun comes up, it don't even matter. You just wake up, roll out of bed, take your trash cans out, and it doesn't matter what you're wearing.
Yeah, but today is the kids' Saturday because they only have 4 days school.
Oh,
Yeah,
is
not
that by
real thrilled.
design?
It's not my preference, but it's the school district's design. And so they're in school for over 8.5 hours a day, which there's plenty of studies about. And I'm kind of sad Randy's not here because as a previous educator, I'm sure he would weigh in heavily about all those studies.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
mean,
so yesterday was the kids' Friday. So today's our Saturday. Um,
yeah.
so we can sleep in. So normally I am up before the sun, but today I got to sleep in. So
Now, but the now you just need to get a job that's also only 4 days. Because if you get a job that's 5 days, you're over here still getting up, and they're
I
kind of end up being a
know.
little jealous, right?
Absolutely. Like absolutely. And you were talking about being old school as in like work. I'm going to call it work ethic because with the great resignation and everything that's been going on, and then I feel like we are honestly in a recession, whether people want to admit it or not. But the amount of layoffs, I think, definitely speaks volumes to the fact that we're in a recession. Uh, I was at the courthouse yesterday because my daughter got her name changed. Very excited for her. Long story short, she now has my last name, and it was her original last name. And so she's very excited to be back at it. But at the courthouse, I was more well dressed than
The judge.
no, she was immaculate. There were probably only two other attorneys who were as nicely dressed as I was. And like, man, small town America, small town Texas, let me tell you, like, people, if you go to an interview or you happen to go in front of a judge, don't wear flip flops, don't wear jeans, wear nice clothes, probably do your hair, ideally take a shower that day. Yeah, I feel like I was a great end to the judge's civil cases that day because some of the other people don't argue with a judge either. Like, that is not going to help your case ever, ever. Or if you're interviewing, don't argue with the people. Also not going to help you. So
Well, I
yeah,
haven't
took
I haven't had a reason to have to go to court, and I hope that I can keep it that way. Um, but you mentioned like interviewing and stuff. When I interview, even today, even if I'm interviewing on Zoom, like if I really want the job, or I'm like really kind of at least partially interested, I'll wear like a collared shirt or a polo, whatever. And I know a lot of times uh I'll be the one that feels like overdressed. You join a
same.
call, you gotta remember, right? These people, they already have a job at that company, so they're wearing, and whatever you want, right? Like that's kind of cool though. When we work from home, it is really nice to be able to work from work. There's a bunch of like memes and videos where people are on a video call, right? They're wearing a suit on top, and then they stand up by accident, and they forget that they're just wearing like they're still in their pajamas on
Boxers.
the bottom or
Yeah.
boxers or whatever it is. And but that's one of the benefits or perks from working from home, right? Like you can roll out of bed 2 minutes or 30 seconds before your Zoom meeting, right? Roll out of bed, boom, log in real quick. You're on the call. When it's done, you go get your coffee or whatever. And I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing because it kind of, if we're being honest, we kind of get a little lazy.
Well, we do. And it's funny that you mentioned that because my partner, he dresses infinitely better than I do. Like he's always wearing a collared shirt or like a button down or something to that fact. He was in the military, prior Navy, so that's probably a big reason
Yeah.
why. But I kind of had to step my game up when we started dating because I felt like I was always in yoga pants because that's like 90% of my attire because I do yoga. I was a yoga teacher. And so, yeah, I was like, man, I kind of have to put in more of an effort. I'm not a person that wears a lot of makeup. So then it was also like, oh, you like smell nice and you look really nice and I should make an effort. And I guess it's only putting on like, eyeliner or lipstick or whatever it is, right? It's only putting on a nice shirt. It's just four things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you called that out. So we talked, it's already, it's crazy how quick time goes. I think last time we talked on the podcast was already like 4 weeks ago, maybe
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, I think it
And
was.
you mentioned four things, and it's something that when you said it, we kind of talked about it. I really like it. It really vibed with you know the way that I approach things. Maybe you can tell the story again, but ultimately it comes down to like perspective and just looking at something and saying, "Oh, that's just four things."
Hmm. Yeah. Um, there was a TV show a while ago called The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt or
Yeah,
something like that. It's just 10 seconds, right? Like I can do anything for 10 seconds. And it's just kind of to your point, that perspective of what really is, you know, keeping you from your dream. And if it seems too overwhelming, then break it into smaller, easier pieces. Like we talked about me being on the job market. I'm in the middle of staging my house to sell and doing all these things. And if I think about like everything that's happened, I could get depressed easily. I could
yeah,
be overwhelmed by life. But if I just break it into small, manageable chunks, like it's just four things. It's just, okay, now I need to paint this bathroom and now I need to do this. And then it's not like so overwhelming that like, oh, I've got all this stuff to do and oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Instead, it's like, it'll be fine. I just have to have the right perspective about it.
yeah. But the way you said it last time, I think that's really where I was trying to get to. You said that there was a little kid
Mm-hmm.
and she was talking to her mom about being like an astronaut or something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
love the perspective from a kid because as adults we get weighed down, right? We see the realities and things, and we can become like pessimists and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. But tell that story from the perspective of a child.
Yeah. And just the whole it was a meme. I know we talked about it last time and I posted it in the chat. I would have to search for it. But yeah, to your point, she wanted to be like an astronaut or something. And the mom was talking about all the things she would need to do, all the schooling, everything. And the daughter was just like, that's just four things. Like it's not a big deal. Um, and I find that that's a really refreshing point of view because to your point, like as adults, we get too caught up in the long game. It speaks a lot to mindfulness. And yes, I'm going to transition back to yoga for a minute. But it's that mindful approach to life of like, you have to stay in the moment. If we look at everything going around us, it's way too easy to be overwhelmed. But
Yeah,
if we keep that perspective of the right now, of the immediate, it's just four things. Everything's manageable.
yeah, yeah. I love it. Like it's uh I don't usually look at it as just four things, but the way I approach stuff. But like I really like love that viewpoint because um I'm very much one of those persons that's like if I wanted to go do something, I'm gonna go do it. Like I am only 5'7", so if I wanted to play basketball, that's probably not gonna happen, right? I'm like
No, there's
I'm
the
not
front,
too, I'm not too
the
unrealistic.
The
You
front
know,
position, they're shorter, right? I don't,
the
sports ball
front
is not my,
position.
yeah,
Yeah.
sports ball is not my
Let's
thing.
not get into sports ball, but the thing is, right? If I want to do something, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
If I want to build a business, I'm going to go build a business, right? If I want to, design something cool in my garage, I'm going to do it because I know that like that's attainable and it's just four things. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
three things and maybe six things, but it doesn't really matter. It's more of an approach of like, and I love it when somebody says, like when somebody challenges me, like I just love it. Oh, this is, takes so much work and this and this and this. And there's like some gifts, which we'll talk about more about in a second, because that's something. But I love this. There's a gift where it's like, you get challenged and it's like, here, hold my beer.
Mhm.
And it's my, for me, the it's just four things is my, here, hold my beer, right? Because that's all it is. I'm just busy doing this other thing. Here, hold my beer, or whatever it is I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go do that thing, and then it won't take me too long, and I'll be back, and I'm gonna get my beer, and I'm gonna finish it. And you know, I don't know if you've been following, like, I can't remember if you're like in the Studio Anvil server, whatever, but whatever. Like, ideas just like pop into my head, and it's like, I'm gonna stop doing this thing, and I'm gonna go build that thing for a second,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna add another feature here, and I'm gonna do this. And you know, as adults, right? I mean, we tend to like just overcomplicate things. Me and Randy kind of talked about this on the last, when we talk about like accidental complexity
Yeah.
and things like that. But as adults, we weigh things down, and I love it. Like, you'd look at kids, like I have two kids, and kids they'll just do it.
Yeah.
Uh, we were One of the hobbies that I've gotten into is boating, and so uh, from just to like prove like how kids think. This was like 2 years ago. My older son's 13 now. He was like, I don't know, maybe he was 10 or 11 at the time. And he's standing on the edge of the boat. He just does a backflip. And I'm like, when did you learn to do that? He doesn't do gymnastics. I haven't seen him do any backflips. He just does a backflip off the boat, and it's pretty good. And from his perspective was like, oh, I just wanted to do it. And so therefore he did it. Right? There wasn't anything in his head like, I could get hurt. Um, I might belly flop. When I do the rotation, I don't rotate
Uh-huh.
all the way. And then earlier this summer, we ended up doing like the boat club, and you can rent a boat, and you can rent different boats.
Okay.
So we take a family out. My wife's like cousins and stuff. They have a daughter who's like 11, or maybe she's 15, something like that.
The 4-year range.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good at age. Um, and it's a double decker and has a platform on it. And we start jumping off the top. And so what she does is she runs and does a double flip, and she face plants. So the first flip was perfect. The second flip only made it halfway around, and she face plants. And the
In
first
the
thing I was
water.
in the water. And the first thing
Okay,
I could
good.
think about was, dang, why didn't we record that? My the second
Uncle of the year.
the second thing I thought was, where did she learn to do that? And so when I asked her, she said, I don't know, I just did it. Right? I just love this. And I think that as adults, we need to kind of start adopt this in some of our lifestyle, right? When there's a decision that's need to be made, maybe we just say, it's just four things, right? Let's just go do it.
Well, I kind of challenged you with that. Was it last week when you were running into that issue with work? The issue
Um,
of drive.
oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah. And so I just challenged you because I'm like, I know Ram. I'm gonna challenge him. See how he deals with that. Uh
oh, Randy knows it. Randy knows it too much. Randy sees it all the time. And I'm a hopper. I like to. I don't know if have you taken the Gun.io. Um, there's a website called Gun.io that's for like tech talent, and
oh yeah.
they have this work style study you can do, very similar to like Tanya Penfield used to do this at USA. She used to
Uh-huh.
like you know,
Oh,
say
yeah.
she used to have you do things and you're like, oh, you're this type of personality, that type of personality. And I do the thing and it comes back as like there's like 6 different ones and it comes back as innovator, right? Basically, I like to solve problems and move to the next problem.
Hmm.
And but it works well with what I am, right? Because if it's only 4 things and I don't see like obstacles, I just see opportunity, then
Yes.
here we go.
Well, and I think that's the innovator, solving problems, moving on to the next. I think that's the big difference between engineers and developers. And we've talked about this in your other Discord a lot with the group that we have there. And it's a really interesting distinguishing feature for those in tech is when we go through schools, we're only told that we're a developer. Then when we get into our professional life, we're told that we're all engineers and that there's no difference. But there really is a difference.
I could talk about this forever. I don't know if you're trying to tee me up on this, but I could
Yeah.
talk about the I actually so I've talked about this quite a bit. One of my goals for this year was to write more and to like do some talks. And it's not because I like to hear myself talk, but I think you get to a certain point, you're like, hey, I've actually learned some stuff, maybe I can share it. And I have this thought that there's a gap between developer and engineer, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
not the same. They are nowhere near the same. If I were to put this on a graph, coder and developer are closer together,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's this huge gap, and then here you are with engineer, right? And engineer on this side is, if you were to group something else with it, you might group architect with it, right? Because over here we're solving big problems, but we're not just like we're not always just using pre-built solutions, or we're not necessarily always following a paved path. Here we are, we're saying here's a problem, I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to maybe do research on different solutions, and I've got this one solution, and what are the alternatives, what are the trade-offs. And you don't always see that when you're early in your career. I know I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. And like you mentioned, in the Amazingly Average Discord service, you can see it in people. I see. I love that you've been using the lounge quite a bit. You jump in there, you start talking to people, and you can really get a sense of where they are. Like if you look at this as like a X, or like a 2-dimensional graph, you can kind of see where
Right.
people are, and you can be like, oh, this person is closer to you know here, or this person is kind of in the middle. Maybe they've you know identified that there's a gap, and therefore they see that they need to close it, because that's really the first step in anything, right? I've never been like addicted to stuff, but you could say that the first part of like beating your addiction is to understand or identify that you have an addiction.
Yeah. I think they talk about that in the
I don't know. I'm sorry.
AA.
Maybe I'm
I
misquoting.
don't. No, 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 no. I also that's not true. I'm addicted to learning,
Yeah.
but I don't think I need to break that.
No. No. Don't.
I do know people that have addiction issues and like the whole 10-step program. And I think the first one, to your point, is like admitting that there's a problem. Um, but to kind of, link back, once that gap is identified, let's just say going back to the example between developer and engineer, then it's identifying those things that you need to do to resolve that. So when I first started at USAA, I was definitely more of an engineer than a developer. I know code, I know how to understand it, but I'm better at solving those problems. I'm better at, hey, you're the stronger developer. How about you take these things that I researched and figure out which path you want to take? Because I'm not trying to tell you how to solve it. I'm trying to tell you the options that you could use to solve it.
Yeah.
And so I think once you start working with people, and this is one of the things that I love about Amazingly Average, is just like, where is it that you want to go? Now these are the things available to you to get there. And to your point, like a lot of people they haven't had the experience. They need someone to help them bridge that gap. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the community that you've set up is you have all these people, willing to help one another out to bridge that gap. And me personally, and I know it's something that you're also passionate about, is we want more representation in tech. We want to make things accessible.
I think I've seen you do a lot of work in the server. You gave a lot of your time, but if I could tell those people, listening or in the server to do one thing, and that would be is to communicate more. Like
Yeah.
like if we're being honest, right? Like we look at the server and we're like, who's most active? And maybe it's not communicate more, but it's be more active, right? So if you look at who's active, well, Shay's pretty active in the server, right? I'm pretty active because
It's
um,
yours.
it's mine, but I want people to also feel like it's theirs too, right?
Yeah.
I want people to feel like, hey, I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to continue to like be very active until I get kicked out. Like, again, this goes back to like your thought process, how you see things. In the very beginning, when I started, when I became a developer, again, I was a developer in the beginning. It took me a while to kind of break into the engineering mindset. I had a lot of trouble like paying somebody, reaching out to somebody. So somebody would say, hey, I saw you say there's lots of rigor, lots of
Mm-hmm.
silos, lots of separation of concerns. So what happens is when you need something done over here, you can't just do it yourself like you could in a startup or on your own. You got to go and put in a request. And a lot of times you have to reach out to that person or that team. In the very beginning, it was really hard for me. Um, based on like the way I grew up and stuff, I was just like more shy. And also like I had communicating is hard. It's something you have to learn, especially for me. I'm not like super outgoing. So I had to learn to reach out to those people and just be more active. And, for anybody that's early in the game, right? Again, this is a game that we're playing. And hey, I'm pretty good at it. So if you want tips, let me know because I've been playing this game for a while.
Yeah.
If you're early on, you need to start being active. Forget about like rubbing people the wrong way or forget about am I going to get kicked out of the server because I'm too active? We'll let you know. Right.
Right.
It's reach out. I wish I had somebody early on that could say, hey, how much did you make at your first job? How much did you make at your second job? How did you make the jump from your first job to your second job? I wish I had somebody that I could reach out to and say, hey, could you look at my code? Or I'm thinking about this, solving this problem, but I'm not really sure where to start. I wish I had people that I could have approached. Instead, I built a lot of bad code. Now, that did also teach me things, but I wish I would have had somebody early on. And so, again, this whole community is that. And I
Mm-hmm.
want people to feel like, go out and ping somebody. I had somebody in, so Coach Jim kind of pivoting. I'm a huge fan of like pivot when you need to, right? Again, it's very much like engineering. You don't always just continue down the same path just because you've started down the path. Sometimes you have to say, well, we tried this, we learned this, and now we have to pivot.
Yeah.
I had somebody in Cogent the other day say, I said, hey, I see you're online. Do you have any questions on this or that? And I said, well, I didn't want to bother you. So what do you think I'm here for? What do you think I'm doing this for? Right? Like I'm not getting paid. But the thing is that, people need to understand that like that's part of playing this game. You either go out and get it or somebody else is going to go out and get it.
Yeah. Social capital goes a long way. And I have an entire, blog about this. We talked about writing and things that we're passionate about. You do a really good job of short writing. It's like, the 10-second approach, right?
Yeah.
I do the 10-minute approach to writing. Like, and it's just because I think one of the things that I've really grown to value, more and more the more that I'm in this career and the more experience that we've gotten, because we're not you know, newbies in this whole game, is that I want to provide everybody enough information to be successful in whatever they're doing. And when you were talking about like the things you would want to tell people, for advice, I've never been shy about reaching out to people. I've always made myself known to the VPs, AVPs, CEOs, like whomever. If I have an audience with that person, I'm gonna make a connection. Um, because they're just people. They're just people, man.
Yeah.
I remember joking with the VP of Life co at USAA when I first started, and I had people looking at me like I was an insane person for thinking that I could just talk to her like she was a human being. But if you could have seen the look on her face, it was just utter relief that I recognized she was just a human being.
Yeah.
Because they're human beings. They want to joke. They want to talk about their vacation too. They want to have those quote unquote water cooler moments. And it's not going to hurt your career if you make yourself available to that person. If you make them know that you see them as a person too. Always keep it professional, obviously. But you can joke around. So at USAA, you know, we used to get into Nerf gun fights, which I miss dearly.
Before they took them away.
And this is the reason they took them away. I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So at Lifeco, some darts just flew into this VP's office while she was in a meeting.
Oh, nice.
Is it? And so that was the whole thing. And like I happen to be over on that side of, you know, like the little pod areas that we had at the building when that happened, and like saw her just like throw the dart out, shut the door. But like, I'm going to call it that mom look, you know, the one we all got growing up that we're in trouble.
Yep.
And saw that whole thing happen. And then I ended up being over on that side somewhere around lunch the same, you know, day. And I ran into her and I was like, so on a scale of 1 to 10, was that the highlight of the meeting or, and she just started laughing. And again, this is when everyone kind of looked at me like I was insane. But that was, I think, what she needed in that moment, just to have that de-stressor, because it was definitely not the highlight of the meeting. Yeah. But to be able to joke about it with someone, you know, they're just people, just 4 things.